On November 11, 2000, more than 100 skiers were riding a cable car in Kaprun, Austria, excited for a day in the Alps. Excitement filled the air as they boarded the Gletscherbahn 2, a cable car destined for the snowy slopes of Kitzsteinhorn Glacier. Sadly, their excitement turned into a nightmare. The cable car caught fire inside a mountain tunnel, making it hard for rescuers to reach and for people inside to escape. The fire raged for days, and despite rescue efforts, only 12 people survived. This incident marked Austria's deadliest tragedy since World War II, with 155 lives lost. In March 1974, the Gletscherbahn Kaprun 2, or GBK2 cable car started running. It was a long ride, 3,900 meters or 12,800 feet long, taking people from a station in the valley at 911 meters above sea level, south of Kaprun town, up to the Alps Center at 2,450 meters or 8,040 feet. At the top, visitors could enjoy skiing and explore other areas using cable cars and lifts. Everything went smoothly for years until one tragic day. After the accident, no one dared to reopen the route, leaving it as a reminder of the past. Early in the morning on November 11, 2000, 161 people boarded the train at the lower station for the first trip of the day to the Alps Center. At 9:02 a.m., the conductor closed the doors, and the train departed towards the bridge. Nobody even noticed when hydraulic fluid started leaking from a faulty connection inside the control cabin. Unfortunately, the train's heating system was located in the same room, a simple radiator on the front panel of the control desk. As the train left the station, the metal parts of the radiator reached a temperature of above 600 degrees Celsius or 1,112 degrees Fahrenheit, igniting the hydraulic fluid. A subtle smoke, which looked like cigarette smoke, began spreading inside the train, but no one noticed. Even if someone had, there were no means to inform the staff inside the train, no alarm system, and no emergency brakes. Seemingly without any issue, Kitzsteinhorn completed its journey across the bridge and entered the tunnel. At this point, further events became unavoidable. Just a few seconds after entering the tunnel, a fire consumed enough hydraulic cables, causing the pressure to drop to zero. This triggered the brakes, closed the doors, and abruptly halted the train inside the tunnel. Shortly after, real flames started billowing from the control panel, causing panic in the crowded compartments. Passengers began pounding on the windows and doors, but they were shatterproof, making escape nearly impossible. In desperation, some passengers tried to break the windows using their skiing equipment, but they couldn't escape no matter what they tried. 12 people at the back of the train managed to break a window with a ski pole. They followed the advice of another passenger, a volunteer firefighter of 20 years, and escaped down away from the fire and smoke. In complete darkness, inside the steep tunnel and wearing ski boots, they stumbled, trying to move away from the fire uphill. None of them reached the emergency exit. Most were suffocated by the thick, poisonous smoke before the fire reached them. Many trapped passengers had already lost consciousness due to toxic fumes. Eventually, the conductor managed to unlock the doors. Those still conscious opened the doors manually and rushed out into the tunnel, fleeing uphill away from the fire. The tunnel acted like a giant furnace, sucking oxygen from below and swiftly pushing up poisonous smoke, heat, and flames. All passengers walking on foot, including the train conductor, were suffocated by smoke and then burned in the fire. The lack of power and inability to reach the staff at the Alps Center raised alarm with the fire department at 9:12 a.m. One firefighter looked through binoculars towards Kaprun and saw black smoke rising from the mountain. At this point, 155 people had already lost their lives. The victims came from various nationalities, including 92 Austrians, 37 Germans, 10 Japanese, 8 Americans, and 4 Slovenians. Among them was Sandra Schmidt, a talented 19-year-old German skier who won gold in the Freestyle Skiing World Cup in 1999. In total, 31 victims were under 19 years old. What were the causes and consequences of this completely unexpected tragedy? Perhaps this part will surprise you even more than the events themselves. But before we get into that, we ask you to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and now we're back to the main story. At 11:34 a.m., a small team of firefighters entered the smoke-filled Alpencenter and rescued an unconscious person. Indeed, this individual survived, being the sole survivor recovered by the rescuers. Moving further inside the building, they found 2 dead guests and a deceased employee in the control room. Later on, 2 teams equipped with specialized long-duration breathing apparatuses set out toward the train. As they approached the wreckage, they witnessed a sight they would never forget. Over 60 bodies filled the last 50 meters uphill to Kitzsteinhorn. At 8 a.m. the next morning, the rescue operation resumed. Overnight, Glacier Railway workers had constructed a simple cart to transport equipment into the tunnel and remove the victims. The bodies were so badly burned that direct identification was impossible, relying on DNA samples collected from their belongings at the hotel. After recovering all the bodies, it was time to bring those responsible to justice. Examining the wreckage and comparing it with the remains, investigators quickly found the cause of the fire, as mentioned earlier: the installed heaters. They were installed because stewards had complained about the cold draft passing through the train in the tunnel. But the Fakir hobby heaters were never meant to be placed in such a location. They were intended for homes only. The manufacturer clearly stated on the packaging that they were meant for bathrooms and living spaces. On June 18th, the main trial against 16 defendants on various charges of negligence began in Salzburg. The first defendant, a service worker who purchased the heaters, successfully defended himself by explaining that nobody specifically told him what the heaters were for. The blame couldn't be placed on the train manufacturer's purchasing department, as they initially instructed employees to buy a different, safer heater. Allegedly, they didn't know that a different, unsuitable device had been purchased when the previous one wasn't available on time. They had specifically requested Domo heaters, which had already been approved and used in another Austrian cable car. In a separate trial, charges were brought against the heater manufacturer, which ended in the same way, as it was proven that the heater, in its unchanged form, met all the requirements for household use. On February 19th, the trial ended without proving sufficient guilt for anyone, a verdict upheld by another higher court in Linz in September 2005. So, as you can see, no one really faced consequences for this accident, but because it was such a tragic event, compensations were quietly paid to the families without any publicity or objections. In June 2008, 451 relatives and survivors signed an agreement and received a total of 13.9 million euros, or approximately $16.9 million, divided into various amounts between them. And what do you think? Is there a specific institution or person responsible for this disaster? Or perhaps it was an unfortunate accident that couldn't have been prevented anyway? Let us know in the comments what your opinion is on the whole matter. And if you enjoy the content we create, please click here to see more videos about the world's biggest disasters. We'll see you there.